The greatest city in the Americas is burning, and its empire is about to disappear forever.
For months, this city of hundreds of thousands had been trapped, surrounded by an enemy it could not escape. But this was not just the fall of a city. It was the destruction of an entire civilization's future. This is Echoes of Time. In 1521, Tenochtitlan faces its final days, and an empire stands at the edge of history. Before its destruction, Tenochtitlan was one of the most advanced cities in the world.
Its markets connected thousands of people, creating one of the largest trading centers of the ancient Americas.
According to Mexica tradition, this island would become the birthplace of an empire that would dominate the Valley of Mexico. Built on a lake with limited land, the Mexica transformed a difficult environment into one of the greatest urban centers of its age.
Its engineers created canals, causeways, and aqueducts that amazed the Europeans who first saw the city.
Behind its temples and markets stood a powerful empire with a strict political system and a highly organized society. Its warriors had built an empire through military strength, alliances, and fear across the region. At the center of this empire stood Moctezuma II, the ruler who controlled one of the most powerful states in the Americas. But in 1519, everything changed. A foreign force arrived from across the ocean, and the world of the Aztecs would never be the same. In 1519, Spanish ships reached Mexico, bringing soldiers, ambition, and a force the Aztecs had never seen. Leading them was Hernán Cortés, a commander whose arrival would transform the history of the Americas. Cortés commanded only a few hundred men, yet he marched toward an empire of millions.
The Spanish survived by forming alliances with enemies of the Aztec Empire.
The Tlaxcalans saw the newcomers as a chance to defeat their powerful rival. A small foreign force was becoming something much larger as it moved closer to the Aztec capital. To the Spanish, Tenochtitlan looked impossible, a city unlike anything they had ever known. News of the strangers reached Moctezuma, forcing him to decide how to respond. Instead of attacking immediately, the Aztecs sent gifts to learn more about the newcomers. The gifts revealed the wealth of the empire and awakened a dangerous desire among the invaders. In November 1519, the impossible happened. Spanish soldiers entered the heart of the Aztec capital. Two worlds stood face to face, unaware that this meeting would begin the collapse of an empire. The Europeans discovered a civilization far more advanced than they expected. But beneath the peaceful appearance, fear and suspicion were growing on both sides. The fragile alliance began to break as both sides realized they could not trust each other. The empire that welcomed the strangers was now preparing for a fight it never wanted. The fall of Tenochtitlan had not begun with a battle. It began with a meeting. The visitors were no longer guests. They had become a force controlling the heart of the empire. Moctezuma found himself trapped between protecting his people and avoiding a greater disaster. A ceremony meant to honor the gods would soon become the spark of a devastating rebellion. The ceremony ended in bloodshed, destroying the fragile peace between the two sides. The people of Tenochtitlan no longer saw the Spaniards as visitors. They saw invaders. Moctezuma's authority was collapsing as his own people questioned his decisions.
The emperor who once commanded an empire could no longer control the streets below.
As the city turned against them, the Spaniards realized they had to escape before it was too late. Their escape became a disaster known in history as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. The conquerors who entered the city as victors were now fighting simply to survive. The Aztecs had driven the invaders away, but their greatest challenge was still coming. After Moctezuma's death, the empire searched for a new leader during its darkest hour. Cuauhtémoc took command, determined to defend his city until the very end. The Aztecs prepared their capital for a final battle against the returning enemy. Cortés returned with a larger army, built from alliances and a new plan to destroy the city. In 1519, Spanish ships reached Mexico, bringing soldiers, ambition, and a force the Aztecs had never seen. For the first time, the Aztecs faced an enemy controlling the waters around their island. Inside the city, thousands prepared for a siege that would decide the fate of an empire. In 1521, the final struggle for Tenochtitlan was about to begin. The greatest city in the Americas stood alone against an unstoppable siege. The siege began, cutting Tenochtitlan away from the outside world. The city that once overflowed with abundance began to suffer from hunger and isolation. A deadly disease weakened the city, striking a population with no immunity. Despite starvation and disease, the defenders refused to surrender. The Aztecs fought from the canals, but the Spanish ships controlled the battlefield. Day after day, the empire's greatest city became smaller, weaker, and more isolated. The last Aztec emperor knew the end was near, yet he refused to abandon his people. The attackers pushed deeper into the city, destroying the defenses one section at a time. After months of fighting, Tenochtitlan stood on the edge of destruction. On August 13th, 1521, the final day of Tenochtitlan arrived. The final battle began as the last defenders fought for their dying city. With the city collapsing, many defenders turned to the canals for their final escape. Cuauhtémoc attempted to save what remained of his people and their empire. The Spanish fleet pursued the fleeing canoe, searching for the last symbol of Aztec resistance. With the last emperor taken into Spanish custody, organized resistance finally came to an end. After nearly 2 centuries of power, Tenochtitlan had fallen. For the survivors, the fall was not just political. It was the loss of their entire world. From the ruins of the Aztec capital, a new colonial era would begin. But the Aztec legacy did not disappear. Its culture survived through generations. The fall of Tenochtitlan changed the Americas forever, but its story still echoes today. The fall of Tenochtitlan marked the beginning of a completely different era in the Americas.
Spanish rule replaced the Aztec Empire, creating a new political and cultural order.
Although the empire fell, the people and many traditions of the Aztec world survived. The Aztecs left behind achievements in engineering, agriculture, art, and science. In only 2 years, the world of Tenochtitlan changed forever. The fall was caused by more than weapons alone. Alliances, disease, and strategy changed history. Thousands of indigenous allies played a crucial role in the defeat of the Aztec Empire. Disease became one of the most devastating forces in the collapse of indigenous societies. The empire disappeared, but the memory of Tenochtitlan never faded. A city once believed eternal became one of history's greatest lost worlds. Centuries later, the echoes of Tenochtitlan still tell the story of a lost empire. Before the fall, this was a city of innovation, power, and extraordinary human achievement. Its people built systems that supported one of the largest cities of their time. But history changed when two completely different worlds finally collided.
The conquest was not a simple battle between two armies, but a clash of worlds.
Cuauhtémoc lost his empire, but his resistance became a symbol of courage. The city disappeared, but the questions surrounding its fall remain. Historians continue searching for answers hidden within the remains of this lost civilization. Tenochtitlan was not only a city that fell, it was a world that once existed. The fall of Tenochtitlan changed history forever. But what do you think truly decided its fate? This is Echoes of Time. If you want to explore more forgotten moments that shaped our world, join us on the next journey through history.